There was a time when the sky still bled with color, when dawn spilled gold across the oceans and the stars hung like tiny, merciful eyes above the sleeping world. But all things end, even light. It began without warning, a soft dimming, so faint most never noticed. The sun seemed weaker, the nights a little longer, the stars fewer with each passing week. Scientists called it a natural cycle. Astronomers searched their charts for explanation. Priests whispered of omens in their temples. And then one night, the sky simply changed. No twilight, no moon, just a heavy, suffocating black, endless, unnatural alive. The stars were gone, every last one. The world woke beneath a ceiling of ink. At first, people thought it was smoke or a cosmic storm, but it was colder now, the air heavier. Birds no longer migrated. Plants twisted toward the earth instead of the light. The oceans grew still, reflecting nothing. And deep beneath the ground, the first sound was heard. It was faint, a slow, rhythmic pulse like the heartbeat of a sleeping beast. Some said it was a planet shifting. Others called it a frequency from space. But I heard it, and I knew it wasn't the earth that was stirring. It was something beneath it. At night, when I could no longer sleep, I would listen, lie awake in the pale dark, feeling that pulse under my bones. And sometimes when the air was still enough, I could almost make out a second sound, a whisper, low, drawn out, ancient. I could not understand the words, but they carried a weight that pressed against my mind like gravity itself. A name, maybe, or a warning. Weeks passed. The sun flickered like a dying flame. The shadows grew longer even at noon. And though the scientists continued to speak, their voices trembled. Their theories cracked beneath something far older than reason. The end did not come with fire or flood or war. It came with silence. Bird song ceased. Winds fell quiet. The oceans no longer roared. The world simply stopped listening. And in that hollow stillness, the heartbeat grew louder. No longer deep, now near. No longer faint, now constant. The sky hung above us like a wound that would not heal. The color of ash, the taste of dust in every breath. And when I looked up one last time, I saw shapes within the black, vast and shifting, like mountains moving beneath water. That was when I realized we had not lost the stars. They had been taken. And the thing that took them was still here, waiting, patient, beneath the black heavens. Next, Part 2, the forgotten SCR. They said the sky was broken, but it was the world that had cracked. The silence had grown teeth. It chewed through sleep, through sanity, through prayer. And in that gnawing quiet, something called to us. It began in the deserts, where the wind no longer moved and sand turned to glass. Excavation teams unearthed ruins older than civilization itself. They found tablets, carved in a language that slithered when read aloud, symbols that seemed to move beneath torchlight. The first to read them did not sleep again. The second tore out his eyes and wrote on the walls with what was left. The third began to laugh, whispering a single phrase over and over. They are remembering. No one listened, not until the texts were decoded, not until the world learned what we were never meant to know. They spoke of beings older than the stars, 13 forgotten gods, banished before the birth of light. They were not deities of mercy or wisdom. They were architects of hunger, bound in the hollow beneath creation. Their names were scratched from the bones of existence, their temples erased, their worshippers burned into myth. But the scriptures warned of a return, a night when the stars would fade, when silence would reign, and the black heavens would open again. That night had already begun. The scholars who studied the text went missing. Entire research stations fell quiet. One archaeologist was found kneeling in the sand, her lips sewn shut with her own hair, a single word carved into her chest. Rejoice! Rejoice! For the gods had been forgotten long enough. Soon, the symbols appeared everywhere. On city walls, on computer screens, on the backs of people's eyes. No one painted them. They grew, veins of black light, pulsing beneath the skin of the world. I saw one in my mirror, faint, trembling, as if written on the surface of my soul. When I blinked, it pulsed. When I looked away, I could still feel it burning behind my eyelids. And with it came the whisper, louder now, no longer a call, but a command. It did not speak in words. It spoke in memory. Flashes of a world before creation, where galaxies were nurseries of flesh, and gods crawled through oceans of light. They were beautiful, terrible, eternal. And when the new universe was born, they were buried alive beneath it, forgotten, abandoned, left to rot in the silence below. Now they remember. Now they hunger. Now they are rising. The scriptures were not a warning. They were an invitation, and we have already answered. The heartbeat beneath the world grows faster. The sky above darkens further. And I feel it now, the rage of something older than the sun itself. A fury not born of hate, but of being forgotten. The world began to kneel, not to kings, not to saints, but to the voices that crawled from beneath the silence. They called themselves the keepers of the hollow voice. Men and women who no longer blinked, who spoke in tongues that shattered glass and blood vessels. They preached in the streets, their mouths wide and trembling, black ichor dripping from their tongues. At first, the people mocked them. Then they began to follow. The cult spread like infection, through radio signals, through dreams, through static between words. Every night, thousands would wake at the same hour, eyes wide, whispering one phrase in unison. The heavens have opened. We remember. And as they spoke, the lights would die. They worshipped not in churches, but in abandoned cities, their rituals illuminated only by the faint pulse of symbols that bled from walls and flesh alike. I saw one of them once, a woman, her face torn in reverence, her eyes gone white, standing over a pit that wasn't of the day before. Around her were the bones of those who had followed her voice into the dark. When she saw me, she smiled a smile too wide, too calm, and whispered, "We are the echo of the first prayer." Then she fell backward into the pit, her body folding like cloth, vanishing into a depth that had no end. They say the hollow priests can no longer feel pain. They bleed, but the blood runs upward. Their shadows move against the light. And if you listen close enough, you can hear what they hear, a symphony made of screams slowed to the rhythm of eternity. Governments called it mass hysteria. Psychologists called it cult psychosis. But I knew better. The world was kneeling because something had returned to claim it. Across the seas, more cities fell silent. Ships drifted without crews. Entire towns burned themselves, their ashes forming circles so perfect they could not have been made by human hands. And in the smoke above the ruins, faces began to appear, not faces of gods or beasts, but reflections of our own, stretched thin across the sky, mouthing words that made no sound. The priest said the 13 were near, that each whisper we heard was the breath of their awakening, that every missing soul was another vessel taken. They wore masks made from bone and ash and carved the old symbols into their chests with broken glass, not out of devotion, but to be recognized, for the gods had begun to look through us. I found one of their temples, an old subway station turned into a cathedral of rot. On the walls were murals painted in blood, showing a history that should not exist, the creation of stars, the birth of silence, the exile of gods. At the center, there was a man, skin pale as dust, eyes hollow, mouth torn open by unseen hands. He spoke with a voice that wasn't his own. It echoed from the earth itself. They have awakened beneath your feet. The world you stand on is their tomb. Then he smiled, and every light in that station went out at once. I ran, but the sound followed me, that deep, rhythmic heartbeat, now faster, closer, louder. It was not the sound of life. It was the sound of something feeding. Now, the hollow priests walk in daylight. Their voices broadcast through empty channels. Their sermons reach across static, through every screen, every silence, every thought. And the worst part? I sometimes listen, and sometimes I understand. The heartbeat grew louder. Then one night it stopped, and that silence was worse than any sound. It began with a city called Demarath, a place that once gleamed with glass towers and neon nights. Now, it exists only in memory, and even those are fading. Satellite images showed it last at 2:47 a.m. By 2:48, it was gone. Not destroyed, not burned, just gone. In its place was a perfect crater filled with water blacker than night. Smooth, cold, endless. The edges glowed faintly, as if the earth itself had been cauterized. Those who lived near the border spoke of thunder that came from below the ground, of screams that never echoed, of shapes moving beneath the surface of the water, enormous and slow, as if the ocean itself was breathing. Drones sent into the crater never returned. The last transmission showed a flicker of light below the waves, a pulse. Then the feed filled with static that somehow sounded like whispering. When they enhanced the audio, a voice was heard, low, unhuman, repeating one phrase over and over in 1,000 layered tones. They are not dead. No one could explain it, but the hollow priest didn't need to. They called it a baptism. To them, Demarath hadn't vanished. It had ascended. The priests marched through the ruined streets nearby, chanting as the ground trembled beneath their feet. They said one city must be taken for each god to rise. The second night, the sea boiled. Fish surfaced belly up, their bodies covered in black sigils that pulse like veins. Storms formed where no clouds were, and the moon turned red, then split in two like a cracked eye. Governments called for calm, but their voices faltered. Communication lines bled static. News anchors screamed mid-broadcast as their faces distorted on screen, stretching into endless grins. It was no longer hysteria. It was revelation. I went to the coast 3 days later. There was nothing left of Demarath, only that black water, perfectly still, reflecting nothing. And yet, as I stared into it, I saw something moving far below. Not a creature, not even a shadow. It was a shape beyond understanding, like a memory trying to take form. My ears began to ring. My bones ached. My reflection bent backward. Then I heard them. Voices. Thousands. Weeping, screaming, laughing, all at once. The citizens of Demarath, still alive, but beneath the water. Their faces reached toward me from below the surface, mouths open in eternal silence. And behind them, something moved. Something vast. Something patient. Something ancient. When it blinked, the water rippled like breath. When it exhaled, the air around me went cold. I ran, but the sound followed. That deep, steady rhythm, the heartbeat of the world, slower now, satisfied. And in the distance, I heard the hollow priest singing. 1 has risen, 12 remain. That night I looked at the sky. The stars were gone. The heavens above, darker than ever, began to move. The sky is no longer sky. It breathes. The black above shifts like oil on water, thick and alive. Sometimes it opens, not with light but with eyes, billions of them, watching, unblinking. Those who stare too long begin to bleed from their ears. Then they smile. Then they walk into the dark and never return. The air hums now. Every building, every tree, every heartbeat, vibrating with the same rhythm, the pulse of the gods. No birds, no wind, only that sound, like something massive crawling beneath creation. People pray, but the words turn to dust in their mouths. The priests no longer whisper. They scream. They tear their throats open so their gods can speak through the holes. And sometimes they do. Their voices come out wrong, like thunder speaking backwards. Each syllable tears at the world a little more. I can feel it now, in the ground, in the blood, in the silence between breaths. Something vast is rising, and the heavens themselves are bending to let it through. The end won't come with fire or war. It will come with a whisper from the dark. And when you hear it, you will answer, because you always have. I found the temple buried beneath the ice, a wound in the world, frozen shut for eons. Inside, murals stretch across the walls, shapes that defied logic, beings drawn with hands that trembled in terror. 12 thrones. One stood empty. The air was thick, alive. The walls pulsed with veins of black light. And carved above the empty throne was a single phrase. The 13th was not banished. It was forgotten. I touched the stone, and the world remembered. Visions tore through me. Stars born screaming, galaxies devoured, gods clawing at creation to escape something worse. The 13th had no form, no name. It was a silence between them, the hunger that even gods feared. It was never imprisoned. It was buried inside us. Every heartbeat, every whisper, every thought, all echoes of the same forgotten thing. I fell to my knees as a voice spoke from within my chest. I never left. You carry me. And the heartbeat stopped. For a moment, there was peace. Then the sky screamed. I remember when the air first broke. It wasn't a sound. It was a feeling, like the world exhaled after holding its breath for 1,000 eternities. Then came the light, not sunlight, not fire, something older. It poured from the cracks in the earth, black and gold, shifting like liquid stars. The cities went silent. No sirens, no screams, just millions of people staring upward as the sky peeled open like rotten skin. And from the tear, they came, the 12, each one a monument of nightmare, vast, shifting forms built from every fear humanity ever whispered, wings made of shadow and flame, faces that bent in impossible ways. Some walked, others crawled, and one floated, upside down, its mouth stretching wide enough to swallow storms. Where they passed, reality unraveled. Buildings melted like wax. Oceans turned to mirrors, and those who looked too long began to sing in voices that weren't theirs. The 13th moved unseen. It whispered through the wind, through the blood, through me. I felt its hunger, a longing to be known again. The gods had not come to destroy us. They had come to remember themselves. And we, the humans, were the missing pieces of their memory. People began to change. Their skin turned pale as moonlight, their eyes black and endless. They spoke in ancient tones, chanting words older than sound. Children were the first to vanish, not taken, just gone, as if erased by something rewriting the world. Then the stars started moving, not falling, moving, rearranging themselves into strange, spiraling sigils that pulsed with rhythm. Each pulse made the ground shiver. Each shiver called something closer. The air grew thick with whispers, 1,000 voices speaking at once. Names, places, promises, and one phrase repeated again and again in every tongue, every voice, every breath. We awaken, we awaken, we awaken. I saw them, the prophets of the void, blind, scarred, crawling through the ashes cities, tearing pages from their own flesh, inscribing scripture in blood. Their message was clear. The gods do not forgive. They only remember. And in that moment I understood the return was never about reclaiming the world. It was about reclaiming us. The 13th God had been whispering through our hearts since the beginning. Every prayer, every dream, every nightmare, all leading back to this. The world trembled once more. The sea rose, the earth split, and above the broken heavens, a massive shadow spread its wings. The 13th had taken form, and the voice returned, inside my head, behind my eyes, beneath my bones. Now that you remember me, I will remember you. I screamed, but the sound came out as laughter, and somewhere deep beneath the earth, something laughed with me. There is no more sun. The heavens are wound, torn, bleeding shadows that drip across the horizon like ink through water. What little light remains comes from fires that refuse to die, burning in colors no human eyes were meant to see. The oceans are still, not calm, still, as if the sea itself is holding its breath, waiting for something it already knows will come. The cities lie silent, statues of what once was. Bodies are no longer bodies. They become vessels, shells filled with voices whispering to the dark. Every window reflects not the world outside, but the vast shapes crawling beneath the sky. They no longer hide. The 12 stride across the ruins like titans, their shadows stretching from one continent to the next. Mountains bend beneath their weight. Rivers part to make way for their passing. And when they speak, the air trembles like glass. Each of them seeks something. A name, a place, a piece of the forgotten divinity. They devour memories, feeding on what made us human. But it is the 13th that terrifies me most, because it does not walk. It inhabits. It moves through us, unseen, silent, inevitable. One moment, you are yourself. The next, you are the echo of something ancient wearing your flesh like a cloak. The survivors call it the silence between heartbeats. They say if you ever feel the world pause, if the sound around you dies for a single instant, you are already gone. I have seen what happens when the 13th takes root. Their eyes turn black, their mouths open, but no sound comes out. Instead, the air ripples, and 1,000 voices speak through them in unison. The gods have remembered their hunger. Then they kneel, bowing toward the sky, as something invisible descends. A weight, a presence, pressing down until ground itself cracks. Those caught beneath it do not die. They transform. Their bodies twist into long, pale forms, merging together, arms stretching, faces melting into one another until they are no longer individuals. Just one writhing mass of flesh, whispering devotion to the black heavens. The sky flickers. Not lightning. Something alive, writhing through clouds. I see it sometimes. A shape, colossal and winged, eyes burning with the light of dying stars. It watches, waiting. Every night, it comes closer. The prophets still walk the earth, what's left of them. They carve symbols into the ground, into walls, into their own skin. Each sigil hums when the 13th draws near. They say the marks are not warnings. They are invitations. Every dawn, what's left of the world gathers near the horizon, waiting for light that never comes. They chant the same words. We were made in their image. We return in their name. And the world answers, a low, mournful sound that rolls across the dead plains like thunder. Somewhere beneath all of it, I can still hear my own heartbeat. Slower now, fainter. The 13th is inside me. It speaks in dreams. No, not dreams, memories. It shows me the beginning, before stars, before light, a sea of endless dark. And from that dark, the first gods emerged, fragile, trembling, afraid of what they could not see. They built the cosmos to hide from it. But the 13th was not banished. It was the darkness itself. It waited, patient and eternal, inside the very things the gods made to escape it. The stars, the worlds, the flesh, inside us. Now, the veil has fallen. The hiding is over. The universe has remembered what it truly is. A body of shadow, dreaming of light, and the dream is ending. As I write this, I can feel my skin cooling. The heartbeat has stopped, but somehow I am still aware, floating in the space between thought and silence. The 13th speaks once more, softly, lovingly. You are not dying. You are returning. And in that moment, I understand, the last dawn isn't the end of light. It's the light remembering where it came from. The gods are not returning to the world. The world is returning to them. The air is colder now, not the cold of winter. No, this is the cold of absence, the kind that seeps into the bones of the world when even time forgets to move. I don't know how long it's been since the light died. Days? Years? Maybe it doesn't matter anymore. The sun never rose again after the 13th whispered its name. Now the horizon bleeds with a dull, shifting glow, a wound where the heavens once stood. Everywhere I look, the world trembles, as if trying to remember the shape it once had before it began to unravel. I walk through what remains of city, or maybe the memory of one. Buildings stand half dissolved, their walls pulsing faintly, alive with whispers. The streets glisten, not with water, but with something darker, veins of black light threading through the ground like roots. Each step I take echoes too long. The air carries a sound far beyond hearing, like the world itself is listening. Sometimes I hear them, the gods. Their voices hum beneath reality, deep and resonant, shifting through languages older than meaning. They are not angry. They are hungry. The 12 wander the earth in silence, vast silhouettes moving through the mist, their forms bending space around them. Where they walk, the stars flicker. Where they breathe, the oceans rise in reverence. And above them all, unseen but ever present, the 13th lingers. Not a shape, not a sound, but an idea, a thought that crawls behind your eyes and waits to be noticed. When it speaks, it doesn't use words. It uses memories. I hear my mother's voice sometimes, soft, warm, calling me home. But when I turn, she's there, standing in the dark, her eyes wide and black, her smile too still. And then she fades, whispering the same phrase I hear everywhere now. You are not lost. You are remembered. The world is full of voices like hers. Every wall hums with prayer. Every shadow trembles with devotion. There is no day, no night, only the endless twilight beneath the black heavens. I found shelter in what used to be a church. The stained glass is gone, melted into shapes that shimmer with strange colors when I breathe. There's a sound beneath the floorboards, a faint, rhythmic pulse, like a heartbeat buried deep within the earth. I think it's the heart of the world. Or maybe it's the 13th dreaming through me. I tried to pray once, not to be saved, but to remember, but my voice came out wrong. Each word turned to ash before it left my mouth. The gods don't want our prayers anymore. They want our silence. Outside, the prophets walk in lines, chanting softly, their feet leaving trails of light that fade into nothing. They have no eyes now, only mouths that never close, whispering hymns to the endless dark. They say this is not the end. They say the world is being rewritten, reformed in the image of its true creators. And when the rewriting is done, the 13th will open its eyes fully, and all will be one. I've stopped counting how many voices live inside me now. They speak in harmony, like a choir echoing to the hollow corridors of my thoughts. They show me things, the birth of stars, the death of galaxies, the gods crawling from the void, terrified of their own reflection. They created us to hide from what they feared, but we were never separate. We were always the reflection. We are their memory, their dream, their guilt, and now the dream is waking up. The heartbeat grows louder. The ground shakes. The sky splits once more, and this time I see it. The 13th taking form. It is not light. It is not shadow. It is both, swirling together in a storm of impossible geometry. Faces form and vanish within it. Hands reach out not to harm, but to embrace. It is beautiful, in the way a storm swallowing the world might be beautiful, terrible, divine, inevitable. The 12 kneel before it, their monstrous forms bending low, their voices rising a sound that tears through every living thing. It's not music, not speech. It's remembrance, the first sound ever made, and the last sound that will ever be heard. The 13th turns its gaze, if it could be called that, toward me, and in that moment I understand everything. The gods were never our creators. We were theirs. We gave them names, shapes, meaning. And when we forgot them, they faded. Now they return not to destroy us, but to reclaim the fragments of themselves that live within us. Our minds, our faith, our fear. The 13th reaches out, and I feel its hand pass through me like mist. No pain, no fear, only memory. I see the beginning, the void before the first light, where the 13th waited in silence. It loved the others. It watched them create. But when they made the world a light, they sealed the darkness away, sealed it away. Now, after eons of slumber, it has returned to embrace them again. The universe trembles as the two halves, light and dark, begin to merge. The stars collapse into the oceans. The mountains fold like paper. Everything returns to the center, to the heartbeat beneath the earth. And in the middle of it all, I stand still, listening. The 13th speaks one final time, its voice echoing inside every atom of existence. Creation is not life. Creation is remembrance. Then the heartbeat stops. Silence. Pure, endless silence. I open my eyes, or what remains of them. There is no sky, no ground, just an endless sea of black, shimmering faintly with fragments of gold. I am not alone. I can feel them, billions of voices, billions of souls, all around me. We are no longer separate, no longer forgotten. We are remembered. And somewhere, deep within this endless dark, a new heartbeat begins. Slow, powerful, eternal. The void dreams again, not of gods, not of humans, but of something beyond both. A new dawn, a new beginning. Beneath the black heavens,